All right. Is it time? We have a minute. So wait a minute.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay. 17th of Adar. Yom Yom. Let me see for a minute. Okay. Okay. Story. Many years before the Alter Rebbe's imprisonment in Petersburg, which was in 1798, the Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, when we celebrate the Alter Rebbe's coming out of prison. But before that, he once came out of his private quarters to where the Hasidim were gathered, and he said the following. He said, in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, they sensed the preciousness of this lowly world. Not only the ministering angels, the Malachei HaShores, but even it says earliest emanations, but in the Hebrew it says Netzolim HaReshonim, meaning the first emanations, the very original outpourings of Hashem's essence into what we call worlds, which is the worlds of Atzilus. So even the ministering angels, but the ministering and even the earliest emanations would forgo everything for one Amen Yehesh Shemei Rabbah said by a Jew with all his power. As we said yesterday, remember yesterday we story the beginning is implanted in the end. The story of the wash basins in the temple, right? They were illuminated with a shine, and they were created last, but they were the first thing that needed to be done. The Kohanim need to wash their hands. So again, this principle comes up that even in the world of Atzilus, the highest world of Atzilus, they would give up everything for Omen Yehesh Shemei Rabbah of a person down here below. Especially, he says, when that person is totally immersed and involved with these words, Amen Yehesh Shemei Rabbah. This was all the Alter Rebbe said, and the effect was that he kindled such a flame and such a burning enthusiasm in all who heard that for a full year, their Amen Yehesh Shemei Rabbah was with fire. Okay, so this is both yesterday and today are harking. Are telling us and related to what was asked yesterday. What's the news of this part of the Tanya that's coming up?
Excuse me, Avi.
Or that word.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I just wanted to know if we could learn in memory of Gedalia Yerachmiel ben Michal, who's Yartzadisei.
Gedalia Schaefer?
Yes.
Gedalia Yerachmiel ben Michal.
Ben Michal.
Right. His neshama will certainly have an aliyah. We know that we'll have an aliyah.
Yep,
we know that. And what's important is for us to be aware of the hashpahs that come down to us from up above to below from that aliyah that he gets, right? For every aliyah, there's a yurida. And for every ascent, there's an explosion up above that's, as we say, like kerev ha'oretz, into the midst of the earth. So we should align ourselves with that. And I think we could say, those of us who know Gedalia, I mean, he was total immersion, if you could say such a thing, total immersion. And we should reflect that total immersion. Mm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we're doing today in Shabbos, of course. 17th of, where is it? In the classic Tanya, it's page Mem Daled. But more than 2/3 of the way down the page. And in Lessons in Tanya, volume 2, it's on page 455. Okay, we have a mashal we brought yesterday. Remember the mashal that was brought by the Yanuka, the small child in the Zohar, that a person shouldn't walk Dalit Amos without covering his head because the Shekhinah dwells upon the head. And the mashal was this is likened to a lantern where there is a wick, and the wick is compared to the body of a person, That's the thing that's going to burn. That's what we have hands and feet to say and mouth to say, Yehei Shemei Rabbah, etc. But it needs oil. So the Alter Rebbe will explain today a bit about this mashal. V'hine bir mashal zeh, the explanation of this metaphor, shehim shel or hashechina leor haner. In the mashal, the mashal compares the light of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, to the light of a candle. Which that light is not going to be grasped to the wick, bli shemen, without oil. Mekach, so that's the mashal. So what's the nimshal? Similarly, ein hashechina shura al gufa adam. The divine presence cannot dwell on. Now this is, we keep using the word on. We said this yesterday because the Shekhinah is a makif. It's an all-encompassing presence of godliness. And that's why we use it's on the head, like the crown. We mentioned that yesterday, is on the head. The Shekhinah, and we look up to the Shekhinah, which is on the head. So the Shekhinah doesn't dwell on the body of a person, which the body of a person is nimshal lepasila, is compared to the wick. Ella al yedei ma'asim tevim, only through good deeds. Dafke. V'lei daile b'nishmase, and it's not sufficient that we have a godly soul. And this gets to a little bit, Yehudis asked the question yesterday, haven't we heard this before? And what we're going here now is really something that we haven't heard much about before. Because much about before, we've heard of a number of techniques for allowing the light of the godly soul to emerge from the covering of the klippas. But the godly soul, it's not enough that we have a godly soul, shehi chelek elokah, which is a portion of Hashem, emal, above. Liesi kashem lepasila. It's not enough for that, for the godly soul itself, to illuminate the wick, to cause the wick to burn. So mavura umuchen lechol maskil, because it's understood and it's been explained and it's understood to lechol maskil, to those who have understood and have heard the teachings and who understand. Nishmas ha'odam, the soul of a person. I was talking about the godly soul. The godly soul of a person. Afilu hu tzaddik gomer. Even if that godly soul is invested in a complete tzaddik, who's oived Hashem b'yira v'ava b'tainugim, who has an awe and love of Hashem, which is called ava b'tainugim, the highest levels of delight. Ava b'tainugim is when you're completely given. It's all about lishma. It isn't anymore the love that I have I yearn for Hashem, and I want to be close to Hashem. It's the love that's given over entirely to Hashem lishma. So even a tzaddik gomer, whose godly soul is invested in that person, and that person is operating at the level of yira v'ava b'tainugim. Afal b'chein, nevertheless, enu b'tela b'metzias legamri. This is not a state of complete nullification. The bottle v'yecholel be'or in Hashem mamish. There still is an individual, right? A tzaddik. This is not a complete nullification of one's existence in the light of Hashem mamish. To be one and united with Hashem with a complete unity. The person and the nefesh elokis is after all, the nefesh elokis is after all only a chelek elokah. So there's still a certain somethingness about the nefesh elokis, and certainly about this tzaddik, who is not bottled b'metzias completely. So who davar b'fnei atzmai, he's not the davar b'fnei atzmai v'yiras Hashem avosai. There's still the tzaddik there, and there's still the nefesh elokis, which loves and fears Hashem, or fears and loves Hashem. That's the order in the pasuk. Yiras Hashem v'avoyu. Masha'ein kein ha-mitzvos. A completely different story than the story we've been telling about not enlivening, but bringing forth the light of the Nefesh Elokis, is the story of mitzvahs, u'ma'asim tovim, and good deeds. Shehein ratzayna yizborach. The mitzvahs, which are commandments to do what Hashem wants, which is what we call good deeds, what he wants and what he doesn't want. They are ratzayna yizborach. They are God's blessed will. And God's blessed will is the source of the life force of the entire worlds, of all the worlds, the habirurim, and all created things, which this ratzon, this will, as it says in Kabbalah, it rose up in God's will to create. The Nefesh Elokis is one of those things that rose up in God's will to create, as is everything, all worlds and all creatures. And the creation, as we've spoke before, the creation is an emanation which comes through the process and as a result of Hashem concealing his Yehudeh, his unity, his singularity, through the Tzimtzum Rabim, the Hester Ponim, through the process of contractions and concealment and hiding of the face. The face of God's supernal will is covered over in the creation, but not in the mitzvahs. And that simsum and the concealment of the face and the concealment of God's will comes down in descent after descent, medrega, in one level after another, until it's able to bring into being, ula hibores, and to create, yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, which are those somethings that have the experience of themselves as a davar nifrad, as something separate, bifnei atzmei, on their own. And they are not nullified in their existence. They have a sense of their existence. No matter how refined, no matter how high, even the world of Atzilus, and even the Nefesh Elokis. Masha'en kein ha-mitzvahs, which is not the story, mitzvahs, shehen penimius ratzayna yizborach, which are God's innermost will, yizborach, ve'ein sham hesteponim klal. In mitzvahs, there is no concealment of God's face because mitzvahs are the expression of God's will. So the life force which is in them is not something separate on their own at all. Klal. Elahu, this life force, is unified and included in God's will. And they are one mamish, the mitzvahs, which are the encapsulation of God's will, not his creative energy. His energy derives from his will, right? He has a will to create, so he brings forth from himself an energy of creation, and that energy of creation, which creates everything, including the Nefesh Elokis, is a result of some concealment. It's not him himself, his singularity. But the mitzvahs are united with him, and they're united with him with a complete unity. So now we said, back to our mashal, in the dwelling of the Shekhinah, the divine presence on one's head, so to speak, is a Gilui Elokusi Yisborach Ba'oinse Borachu Be'eze Dov. It's a revelation of that unity, that singularity, that Ratzon of God, of the light of the Infinite One in something, which means to say, when a person is involved in mitzvahs, the mitzvah, your hand holding an estrog, that estrog is a manifestation of God's will, which is the starting point for the rest of creation. And that's what's invested in, I'm just using, of course, this estrog as an example. That's what's invested in that esrog. And when a person holds that, so one is included in that, in the Or, the one is included in the Or Hashem Mamish, and that mitzvah that you're holding is something which is itself batal, included, nichlal, in the Or Hashem, in the light of Hashem, ubatale, and completely nullified to him, the Metzias Lagamri, completely nullified in its existence. that estrog this is an interesting kind of paradox, right? It's a physical thing. But here, back to our Hayom, right? The beginning is wedged in the end. The beginning. The God's will is not invested in the Nefesh Elokis. It's not invested in the world of Atzilus. But it comes through them. But the manifestation of it is in the lavers down here below, the washing pans that are, and the Omen Yehei Shemei Rabbah that's down here below. That's where you'll find God's essence, because that's where I'm using the word essence advisedly. We'll stay with his word. That's where you'll find his will, expression of his will. Because these things, this esrog, which you're holding in your hand, is actually batal b'metzias lagamri, is completely nullified. It owes its whole existence as a mitzvah to the manifestation of God's will within it. And there, then, in a dvar mitzvah, is where there is shoyra, dwelling and revealed in it Hashem Echad, the one God, the oneness of God. But anything which is not batal to Hashem, b'metzias, in its whole existence, lagamri, completely, ein hor Hashem shoyra misgala boy. The light of Hashem does not dwell and is not revealed in it. V'yaf tzaddik goyim, even a complete tzaddik, clings to Hashem. But see, there's a he or a she, a tzaddik, but and clinging to Hashem. But there are two entities. Even a tzaddik gomish and his davik boy ba'avar rabba, who clings to Hashem with a great love. Still, that tzaddik's thought cannot grasp him at all, the emes in truth. Ki amitis Hashem Elokim, emes hu, Yehudi ve'achdusoi. Because the truth of Hashem Elokim, is his unity and his singularity. Shehu levadehu, that he alone is. Nothing else besides him. Vehu eladehu be'efes belade, and there is nothing else besides him, mamish. Him came, therefore, one who loves Hashem, which is someone who loves, he's a yesh, efes, and not a nothing, right? And that's everything. The Nefesh Elokis also loves God, right? It's created to love God. And it's the residence, let's say, of the pure love of God, but it's still an it. And this is something we have to get used to. Chelek elakam mimal. It's only a chelek of elakah, right? We've learned, and we'll say it again, Elokim is the name of God, which refers to some kind of contraction. It's power. It's gevura. Elokim, Elokei ha'oretz, the powerful ones of the earth. And yeah, in that is invested godly energy, of course, but there's still a something there, because it's a manifestation of Simson. So the Nefesh Elokis itself, though it's a manifestation of, quote, Elokus, it's a chelek, it's a part of God. Okay, so therefore, one who is a love of God, that person is a yesh, efes, and not a nothing. So therefore, so he can't or she can't grasp God himself. And the light of Hashem cannot dwell and be revealed in that person, ella al yedei kiyum ha-mitzvos, only through the fulfilling of mitzvahs. So this is different. I have in front of me, I started by yesterday, I thought it would be nice if we had a list of techniques that the Alter Rebbe gave us in the previous chapters about how to megala, to reveal the Nefesh Elokis. So I made a list. I have a partial list in front of me of all different techniques. But this isn't about megala, the Nefesh Elokis. This is about having the experience of God himself, the Shekhinah, resting on top of your head and being the fuel to enlighten you, to fire up everything that you do. And where is that fuel? What is the oil which lights up the body? It's mitzvahs. And this is worth saying again. The ein or Hashem shoda misgalaboy ela alidei kima mitzvahs. The light of Hashem does not dwell and is not revealed in the soul and in the person except through fulfilling mitzvahs. which they are God's will and wisdom, mamish, bli shum hesteponim, without any concealment. And to end, this is Shabbos's portion. To end it, it ends with this Hagah, this note, which is printed in Lessons in Tanya. I don't know if all of you have this note, but we'll read it because this is the end of this concludes today's Tanya. So in the footnote, Hagah, the Alter Rebbe writes, as I've heard from my master, my teacher, Olav Shalom, which is the Mezritch Magid. The Mezritch Magid taught him a pirush, an explanation, and a tam, and a reason, for what's written in the Kabbalah of Eitz Chaim, the following: that the light of the Infinite One, blessed be He, is not unified even in the world of Atzilus, first being enclosed in the sphere of Chachma, because because the Ein Sof himself is one in truth, he is the singular truth, one echad ha'emes, shehu levadehu, which means when we say he is one, the one truth or the true one, the thing only which is the only thing which is one, means that he alone is. Shehu levadehu, he alone is. The Ein Zu Losoi, and these are the words that the Alter Rebbe used in Tanya. He used these words. Hu levadehu ve'ein zu losoi, there's no one besides him. So this oneness, this absolute oneness, which we said the only way to access that, because the only place where it is really invested is in physical mitzvahs, or no, I forget, is in mitzvahs. Zuhi midregas hachma. The level of chachma has the ability to grasp that state of oneness and to infuse at least an experience of it into the world of its, into the worlds below it. But that oneness is that esrog. That oneness is the Shabbos candles. That oneness is the physical mitzvah that we do. And that's the only place and the only way to grasp in any respect the singularity and the oneness of God himself. So hopefully you're seeing this is a little different. We haven't really done this before in Tanya. We've been talking a lot about techniques to Megalada and Nefesh Elokis. Here we're talking about the necessity and the ability and how one grasps that life force which creates the Nefesh Elokis itself. Okay, that's today in Shabbat. Comments? Yeah, Yehuda.
Yeah. This was really good, very helpful in addressing my question yesterday, but it brings up some more questions.
Great.
First of all, I was surprised to discover that the Nefesh Elokis, I always did think of it as really completely fused with Hashem and Hashem's essence, with Yud Kei Vav Kei, but what you're saying now, it's actually created and separate, so it doesn't qualify as the oil for the wick. The second question is, what does this mean though in terms of women and having far fewer mitzvot than men, in terms, insofar as being able to access Hashem's full light?
Okay. What it means, and this is explained in Sikhs primarily, everybody and everything, not just women, non-Jews, everybody is given the mitzvahs that are relevant to make this connection. Mitzvah is joining, and whatever mitzvahs you have been commanded, those are the mitzvahs. That is the path for you to connect with this level we're speaking about, which is higher than creation. Why? That's talked about also. Why women need less? They're more close to Hashem naturally. I mean, all of that you've probably heard before, but there's no lack of the ability to experience this because one has less mitzvahs than the other. You've given commanded exactly what you need to make this connection.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's to surprise. This is a surprise. And by the way, I'm not saying this, but these are words in the Tanya. I'm just mainly translating, hopefully not distorting, and trying to give some exposition and illumination on what he says. But it is a surprise, total surprise. I remember being surprised myself because we learned chelek elokah mimah, nothing greater than that, right? Well, there is, because the chelek, the nefesh itself, comes out as a derivative of God's ratzon, of His will. It's one of the things that come out of His ratzon, and His ratzon, which is more primary, is expressed in mitzvahs. Aviva.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that the secular discussion now of gender is relevant to something that Yehudis Chana brought up. When we're talking about mitzvahs that men do and mitzvahs that women do, I think it's important to remember that it's not men or women, it's the male influence, the zachar, and it's the female influence. And in our own bodies that have been created, we are vessels of that influence or that suggestion in the world, so that it's not like, I don't know how to explain this better, but it's not like men and women as we are in this world, but it's the forces and that we represent, the feminine and the masculine in the world. I know it's a very fine point, but I mean, not fine in terms of thinking, but fine in terms of being nitpicky, that we make that distinction, because when we call it the men or women's mitzvahs, etc., there's something that always seems like Yehudis Chana. I'm sure we all feel it. How can we get this or that or whatever, and we're not as involved in the actual mitzvahs. But I think it's the force, our primary force, that Hashem has engendered in us to express.
Yeah, I think we need to take this apart a little bit. On the one hand, masculine and feminine are descriptive of two kinds of energies which are present in both men and women, which is one of your points. The male energy being generally the projective energy, and the female energy being the receptive energy. But the female energy, of course, is much deeper than that. It's the gestative energy also, to receive and to gestate and create, which goes way beyond just receiving, and then to turn, this the duality of Malchus. Malchus is king and queen, right? And so yes, there is that unity of opposites in every person. Opposites being the masculine projective, the feminine being receptive. Nevertheless, there are men and women. So God didn't command, God didn't say to the feminine part of a man, do only this. He said that to a woman. And he didn't say to a woman, vice versa. So they're two different aspects of the same duality. If you know what I'm saying, there's duality which is inherent in everybody, masculine and female. And then there's the separate duality where they are the separate sexes. And each one has its commandments.
Can you please share with us your list?
Oh, yeah. It's a partial list. I just jotted down some things here. Okay.
Wait, maybe after you read it, can you share it on the chat as well?
You mean read it? I'm not going to write. I don't have time to write it.
Oh.
And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things here.
But that's very helpful. I would like.
I know it's very helpful. I know it's. You would like that, Liz. But remember yesterday I said we're a team. We could do this.
I could make a lot of money distributing that list.
I'll tell you what I will do. I'll do a voice note after here. This is a partial list. All focusing on how to light up, how to expose the light of the Nefesh Elokis, which is what primarily we've been talking about. I'll be happy to read that in partial list in there for you, if that helps. Okay?
Okay, yes.
I just don't have time to write it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay, anything else before? All right, so, I mean, look, the singular b'chein here is mitzvahs, man. Mitzvah, tzavto v'chibor, right? How many times has the Rebbe told us? Mitzvah, meloshin, tzavto v'chibor. What really makes the connection. And not just the connection with Elokus, with godliness, but with God himself. Okay. Good Shabbos.
Great. Thank you so much. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.